Hello and welcome back, everyone. So I was going over my garden notes for the year, and I realized that while I thought I planted out my sweet potatoes here in early May, it was actually in early April. That means that at the time of recording here, they've been in the ground 170 plus days, or almost 6 months. I figured there has to be a few down there that are good size after that amount of time. Curiosity got the better of me, and I figured, why not harvest? So before I get into that, though, I'm going to review how I start sweet potatoes. If you've already seen any of my earlier videos on this, feel free to skip ahead. Anyway, it's pretty easy. You start with some good sweet potatoes. You can get them at a grocery store as long as they're organic and not sprayed with any growth inhibitors. You just put them in a shallow pan of damp soil like so. And after about a month, they should start looking like this. These little green shooters that are coming off are called slips, and we are ultimately going to cut those and get them to root. When the slips are about this size, that's when I like to cut them and remove some of the lower leaves like this. Once I've done that, I'm just going to place them in a jar of water. The slips will root tremendously fast. They start sprouting roots after only a day in the water. Here they are after about a week in the jar, ready to go in the ground. And planting is as simple as you would think. I make sure that I plant them in very loose soil. I actually amended this garden bed with a good deal of sand. Sweet potatoes allegedly do not need a ton of nitrogen. In fact, too much nitrogen can it actually cause small roots. And of course, we're really looking for nice big roots when it comes to sweet potatoes. The greens are edible and good, but it's really those nice, sweet, delicious roots that I'm after. So you don't want to over nitrogen your soil. So this first bed that I'm working on here, I'm planting only rooted slips, two different varieties. I don't know their names because they were grocery store potatoes initially, but the ones here with the maple-shaped leaves are more of a classic red sweet potato. The ones with the spade-shaped leaves that you'll see later, those are like a beige sweet potato with a very pale orange flesh on the inside. The second bed of sweet potatoes I am planting with the remains of the whole sweet potato after I had taken my slips for the other bed. And the idea was to run kind of a comparison to see which method, planting rooted slips or planting the entire potato, yielded better results. After planting, my work was pretty much done for the summer. Sweet potatoes really, for the most part, are a set it and forget it crop. There's not a lot of maintenance that needs to be done. The one exception is I did fertilize once or twice a month with this liquid high phosphorus and potassium fertilizer. Those two nutrients typically help root growth. Before really getting into the harvest, I reached in and pulled a sample potato out, and it left me feeling less than hopeful. While a long, skinny one like this is still very edible, what I was really hoping for are those nice, fat baking potatoes. And here I'm just going to clear all of the greenery away. The idea was that I would feed these to my chickens because they're, a pretty high nutrient green, but they didn't touch them. They were not interested in sweet potato greens. They can be a bit picky sometimes. And I started the harvest fishing around with my hands like I am here. Oh, that's a lame one right there. On the second one, I came up with something, a little more reasonable size. That's not too bad. You'll see stuff around that size and shape in your average grocery store. Okay, so feeling a little bit more hopeful. I didn't really have the patience to continue harvesting by hand. And also because a lot of the potatoes down there were the long and skinny variety, I found that trying to pull them by hand, I was breaking a lot of them. So in a minute here, you'll see that I broke out the garden fork, and that presents its own problems because it's almost impossible to harvest them with a fork without gouging them. All right, in with the fork. Let's see what we have going on here. All right, it's looking like most of them are going to be the long, skinny variety and not, the fat baking style. I find that as I sift through this bed here, I do get another couple of the fatter ones, but mostly uh, I may as well be harvesting carrots. Here's everything from bed one, where I planted the rooted slips only, and I gotta say, I'm feeling a little underwhelmed. Some harvest is better than no harvest. A couple of them are fat, but of course, I gouged the living hell out of some of them with the fork, so hopefully those will scab over for storage. On to bed two. So I noticed almost immediately when I started harvesting from the second bed where I planted full potatoes that they're nowhere near as big and developed as the ones from the first bed, which of course, again, was planted from all rooted slips. And man, some of these are just super long and wispy. I'm wondering if part of my problem was underwatering. The long and skinny roots might indicate that they were going deeper and deeper looking for water, putting their energy into that and not getting thicker and fatter. Here's everything that I got from the second bed. It's immediately apparent that the harvest is just overall worse. The potatoes are smaller and the quantity is less than the first bed. A sample size of one isn't really enough to determine that slips are superior to planting whole potatoes. And this is everything I got this year. It wound up being only 30 pounds, that's 5 pounds less than I got last year. And in general, the potatoes are smaller. All right, so here's everything all laid out in my spare room. So I didn't even realize until actually this year that you're supposed to cure. There's a special curing process for sweet potatoes where you leave them, you're supposed to keep them in a very humid environment of about 85 degrees Fahrenheit for several weeks, and that's supposed to concentrate the sugars. Honestly, last year I ate some fresh right out of the ground, and I was happy with it. And then I just let the rest kind of sit at room temperature dry in my office. And honestly, I was happy with the flavor. Maybe I just have an unsophisticated palate or something, but I didn't taste too much difference um, between store-bought sweet potatoes, which one would think would be cured, and the ones that I ate fresh or just allowed to do the lazy method of letting them sit. So that's just what I'm going to do this year. I'm going to let these just sit and do their thing. Some of them will be eaten within the next few weeks, especially I don't think that these wispy ones, these really, really thin ones are going to, they start to get wilty after a few days. Also, unfortunately, I did damage and gouge a whole bunch of them during harvest, so I don't think something like this is going to scab over. So I'll eat them fresh and new. That's fine. Maybe they won't be quite as sweet, but that's what seasoning is for. All right, so overall, a little bit of an sweet potato harvest this year. Better than nothing, of course, but I'm really hoping to do better next year. And until next time, let's hope it all doesn't die.